Oh, hello there, Outliers. I had this thing in my head where I was gonna be like, oh, hello, didn't see you there. But I'm not gonna do that. Hi, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here today. We get a chance to play here on the Outliers at the Roundtable with three incredible people who are all playing out in a massive way. I'm going to introduce you to them. I realize that as I say that out loud, I'm including myself in that three. So like just just being real about that. But I love for you to get to know the trailblazers that we brought on today and to see more about how they're navigating all of this here. So why don't we start off with you here, Evan? You mind letting us know more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Sure. So my full name is Evan Hirsch. I went through the traditional conventional path of becoming a physician, an MD, and then I pivoted into functional medicine, environmental medicine, and then I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I got over it through the tools that I used in functional medicine and environmental medicine. And that's become my mission is to help people with chronic fatigue syndrome and now long COVID resolve their symptoms naturally so that they can live their best life. And really the hill that I'm going to die on is really one where I talk about toxins and infections in the body that we can get more into.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're bringing it here. Congratulations on what you do, and thanks for choosing to lead through that here. And appreciate you. Shilamida, would love to get to know you more. Let us know more about you and the game you're currently playing, please.
The game of life. Well, my mission here is to awaken people to their freedom, to really help people tap into why we came to this human experience and connect them back to remembering who they actually are. And we get clouded in our everyday and the information that's coming towards us. And the true connection of who we are is all inside of us. So I help people awaken to that.
Oh, that's fantastic here. Well, I'm glad that you're here. I think we're going to be having a lot of fun all together, right? So we'll go out and ask like get into some questions here. Part of what I want to understand right now from both of you is like you all play a big game in what you do, and what I also find is that like you're very grounded in what you do. I'm gonna Yeah, I think I can ask this question. You let me know if you're able to answer it. But like, what is it that you think makes you like has helped you become so successful that most other people would like? It's a thing that most other people wouldn't actually know. They might think it's, you wrote a book or you did this, but like actually underneath all that, this is what ends up being like my distinction. Would either of you want to start off on that?
I can take it.
Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
So for me, I think it's my practices. So a number of years ago, I implemented mindset, a four-step mindset practice that I learned in different masterminds, and then also started doing some nervous system retraining. And both of those have been really pivotal for me. Oftentimes when I'm running my business, when I'm trying to be the best husband and father that I can be, I come up against obstacles. And the question is, what do you do when that happens? How do you not lose your cool? How do you make the best next decision? And so much of that comes down to the what's happening between the ears, right? It's not about the book I wrote, it's not about my medical degree. It's about knowing what to do in that moment. And so much of that comes from having a daily practice of mindset and nervous system retraining, which includes the somatic work, breath work, stuff like that, meditation, mindfulness that, has been supportive for me.
I love hearing this. Shalumi, I would love to hear from you on this one as well.
Yeah, I'm totally in alignment with Evan. I think nervous system regulation is the key, and emotional intelligence, I would say, would trump that for me. It's really been training my nervous system to not react, to stay present and calm in the current situation, to know and understand that the things that are happening for me, not to me, and really just allowing myself to feel the feels without creating drama and trauma around it, which is the way that I used to be. Somebody would say something to me or do something, and I would react and I would allow for it to take over everything. And now I feel like people say things to me and I'm just like, whatever, whatever, whatever. Right. And just again, connecting to remembering who you are and what your purpose is and what you came here for. It really helps in knowing that we don't have to react to every little thing. We don't have to get into an emotional frenzy, right? And we are able to handle things at a very even keeled, calm demeanor.
Yeah, so I want to
And
dive in a little bit of this here because once you said like nervous system the first time, I'm like, ooh. What y'all may not know is that today's my birthday, the time of this recording, right? Yeah, and so like I'm specifically like I'm like, oh, I
Happy
can't wait to have
birthday.
this. Thank you very much. And one of the things I'm thinking about is as I go on, I'm like, how do I want to craft this year? And the nervous system part really does like shine through. So I want to spend a little bit more time on that really quickly here. And I think that the way I'm looking at it here, what it feels like it's real for me, it's like, okay, I'm a parent now, parent of two young children. Back in the day, like nothing seemed to like get me. You know, I'm like, let's just go do this like new cool thing. And what about this? So on and so forth. Now I'm like, we got a mortgage, we got the kids are like, you know, like like how like we have to, there's so much to go and deal with. And I think the reason I want to bring this up here, I'll use myself as like the scapegoat in this one here, is that what I've found is that while I know I can do incredible things, I'm dampening what I actually want to go for because I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to sustain it. You know, we talked about different systems and being able to create from that place there. It's like, ooh, if I don't have a system, like the way the thought in my mind is if I can't do it in the long run, should I do it at all? All right. And so I'm really curious for you all about like one, how does like the nervous system regulation, how does that play out for you in your day to day? Like in the past, it used to be like I was getting triggered by a lot of things, but now it almost feels like things are much calmer. But my nervous system still seems to be playing that play in place. So I'm curious about what that like what still gets you from a nervous system perspective. And then if you have any other thoughts on anything I brought up right now, I'd love to just open the conversation into that. Shilamida, like for some reason I saw you nodding. I'm like, I think you have some things to bring into this one. Would you mind starting us off?
So I am a big advocate for human design. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but according to human design, 54% of the population is an emotional authority, which means more than half the people that you encounter are going to have some kind of emotional reaction towards the things that you do, the things that you say, and all of the things. The beautiful thing about human design is the more that you learn about it, it really gives you a blueprint of who you are and who you came here to be. So a lot of the things that we have heard growing up, you're too much, you talk too much, you're not enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not this, you're not that, why do you want to shine? All of these things, when you start learning about human design and you're like, wait a second, but I am supposed to be too much and I am supposed to talk too much and I am supposed to ask a lot of questions. And so you really start understanding like that the person that you are, the volume has actually been turned down. And so if you are an emotional authority, you're reacting, you're responding to things because you're not confident in who you are. And so when someone comes at you with a belief or a thought that is different than what you've been trained to know and understand, then you're going to react in a really poor way. And so when you really start to learn who you are, you start to fall in love with yourself, because that's a big piece of the puzzle too, is this whole self-love piece. We don't have time for that, right? Nobody's got time in the society that we have to fall in love with ourselves. And then if you fall in love with yourself, then you're considered to be narcissistic or egotistical, or there's labels that we put on people because of that. But the truth is that we came here to experience love in the human form. Because if we were to take away our bodies, then we are all pure consciousness, and pure consciousness is just love. But if you ask the average person walking around, they're not living a life that's full of love. They're living a life that's full of stress and anxiety and sadness and fear and all of these things. They're so separated from the oneness, from the pure love aspect. And then they're just walking, ticking time bombs, waiting for somebody to say something to them so that they can react, so that they can turn into the victim, so that they can have some kind of self-pity because they're addicted to the feeling of getting any kind of attention, whether it's good attention or bad attention. And so this nervous system regulation has been such a huge thing for me because I am an emotional authority. I've always been shut down in my lifetime, in my younger years, as to being too much, to this, to that. And so at this phase of my life, like really learning and understanding who I am has given me a sense of peace and calm, that I know when I'm speaking to someone and I don't really like what they're saying, or they're not speaking in the truth that resonates for me, I don't need to react to that. I'm able to take my emotions, I'm able to hold them, and then I'm able to process them on my own without pulling someone into that pain with me.
Oh, I feel you on that there. I feel on that, Shilamida. Thank you for that. Evan, curious what is going on for you.
Yeah, so I think that I love the adage that you can't course correct standing still, right? It's this idea that you have to start no matter what you're creating or building. You talked about, wondering whether or not if you're going to build something, if you're going to be able to sustain it. But I think you have to, unless you have your absolute vision all planned out, you have to start someplace. I tell my daughter 80% is better than perfect, done is better than perfect, right? Oftentimes, and I try to get my wife to do this, but she oftentimes kind of gets stuck, I think, in the perfection where there's if you don't launch something, and by launch, I mean just start something. You don't have to actually put it out into the world, but you need to start moving in a particular direction in order to eventually get to where you want to go. Like right now, I'm very pleased with my business. I'm very pleased with the structure. I help a lot of people and I try to work my way out of a job and I've just worked my way out of one-on-ones. So I've got people coming in and I'm able to help them and they no longer require one-on-ones with me. But did that happen overnight? No, that took the last decade of me doing my business, moving online, a number of things, which I didn't know that were going to happen. All those, it's like looking in reverse. What's that Steve Jobs quote, right? Looking in reverse is the only way you can really understand your life and putting the points together. And so you don't know what it's going to look like. You just have to start. So that's what I would kind of recommend. And that you have values at each junction where you can make sure that you're talking about sustainability. You can make sure that, like in my case, it was, well, it's not financially as advantageous for me to see a client every hour, but what can I do? It's like, well, insurance is going to pay like 45 minutes for appointments. Let me start there and see how it goes. Then it became 50 minutes, then became an hour. And it's like and then I ended up getting rid of insurance, moving to cash. So it's like all of these different steps along the way. You keep thinking about, okay, well, what is sustainability and what is high achieving and what are we really trying to achieve here? I mean, hopefully, as Shilamita is talking about, we're trying to achieve more love, right? And we're trying to achieve more connection. And money is kind of like a byproduct of those things. But I think we have to be really clear about what our values are and making sure that they're guideposts along the path to get there.
That feels awesome. That feels awesome, Evan. Shilamida, is there anything you want to like add into or like bounce in around this?
I feel like we're so aligned with everything that we're doing and saying right now. And I just have to say that you resemble Steve Jobs. So I'm glad that you just brought that up.
There's something here, Evan, that I'm really appreciating. So you're actually catching me at a time right now where I'm moving from one-on-one to group, and asking and looking at this and saying like this, it was always my intention to just do group. I kind of slipped into one-on-one, and so there's something you mentioned, sustainability, high achievement, and what are we really trying to achieve here, right? So outliers, like put that in there. There's some questions you can have to help frame that, and then we were all talking about both the aspect of love and the connection that we can have all together, as well as like the importance of nervous system mastery. So we really got a bunch of different things that are all playing out all at once, and we'll see how this conversation goes. Sometimes I like to bring myself in, but it also feels like super vulnerable. Like we're all like, so lots of great things are happening. I promise you, and this is what's going up there. But I think it's that edge that how do I say it? If I'm not walking the edge, then the conversation should have just been outliers middle, right? And that's not how it goes. So, Evan, I'm going to start with you on this one here. There's something that comes to mind around energy management, and so a lot of people talk about time management. Years back, probably like the last 5 years or so, I stopped having time management productivity conversations because of like as different leaders and such, like it became less about what I can do with my time and more about how I manage my energy. And like I think this ties back to the nervous system components, like all of that. And so I know that you specifically focus on fatigue, but I'm really curious about like your thoughts for any person out there managing their energy that might be different than what most people already hear. And Shilamita, I'll come to you afterwards.
Yeah, so energy management, a lot of people might think of like pacing or, like the idea that there's only a certain amount of, energy balls that you have throughout the day and once you use them up, you're done. And that can be part of the issue, especially for people who have fatigue. But I think a lot of it is kind of breaking down mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy, and figuring out, which aspects of your business are serving you and which ones aren't. And so oftentimes there's going to be different aspects. Like I hated the HR aspect when I had my brick and mortar. That was an incredibly taxing, energetic time for me and threw me into chronic fatigue syndrome. So it's always kind of this combination of all these different energies, the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, that end up, playing a role in like what your daily life looks like. So I think some of it is how are you going to build up your energy and understanding when your energy is being depleted. And the first thing that addresses this is mindfulness. Like you're never going to know if you don't have that awareness about what's happening in your body. And so this comes from meditation. For me, a big part of this has come from the use of psychedelic therapies. And those really help me to understand what mindfulness is, be able to see my thoughts and be able to make decisions from a place where everything's kind of slowed down for me. So starting off with my mindset practice and my nervous system retraining practice, and my meditation first thing in the morning, seeing who I'm interacting with, what do I want my day to look like? And then as I go through my day, am I drinking enough water? Am I eating the right foods? Right? When do I get behind the eight ball and all of a sudden I'm craving coffee, which I don't drink? But like when is that happening? And when am I getting stressed? And am I sitting at my desk or am I standing? And when do I need to be standing? When do I need to be sitting? It all sounds kind of exhausting. But the reality is that you can get very good at noticing what these patterns are, and then you can implement them and be like, okay, I set off an alarm because it's time for me to take a break. It's time for me to go from sitting to a standing position. It's time for me to go for a walk with my wife. I work from home, which is great. It's time for me to make sure that I'm eating, so having that sort of mindfulness allows me to kind of create my day for success. So at the end of the day, I have not more energy than when I started with, but potentially.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Evan. I also think that a lot of energy management has a lot to do with limited beliefs. We believe that we're too tired. We believe that we're too busy. We believe that we don't have the energy to do things. And so it's a story that we've created. I just came back from a 7-day Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat where our days were 14 hours. And you wouldn't have even known it. The time flew by so fast. The meditations actually, I mean, some of them were really hard, but then others were just so energizing and created so much, positive vibrations and high frequency that we were running on emotion, but like good emotion. And so a lot of times it's just a belief system that we need to switch and change. And like Evan mentioned, it's mindfulness. It's knowing and understanding, being aware and conscious of this, that this is the story that I'm preaching every day, that I'm too tired. I don't have enough energy. I don't have the time for that. And then when you start bringing your focus and you want to change your body, you have to change your habits, right? When you change your habits and you start creating more time and more space, then you start creating more energy into your life. So it really has to do with the thought process of how we're going into something.
Yeah, y'all are playing this. I really love this component of the awareness and the thought process that's there. Um, One of the things I kept hearing Evan from you was like, if you're aware, then you can make choices, and you can make, and with that awareness, you can go and do things with it and notice where the patterns are, and go from there. One like the I sign off every one of these conversations saying, "Be you on purpose." Right. And I say that for there's many different reasons why, like every word I choose is very deliberate. But the one part of it is like, be you on purpose. Do it with intention, do it with awareness, and figure out what your patterns are. Right. And then choose the patterns that will allow you to continue being you in that way. And Shilamida, you brought on earlier about like knowing what your purpose with a big P, and leaning into that. And so I'm very appreciative of this conversation right now because I'm like, all right, these things line up. These things line up. Let's move over now. I think we've been exploring a little bit more of like how y'all show up as outliers and some of the things that are that might root you in your outlier part. Let's now go talk about the edge for you. All right. And I think um this is where the realness is, right? Everyone's out in this space that listens to this. So let's start off with a project or something that you're taking on right now, a possibility that you're creating that gives you sweaty palms, that puts you on the edge, that makes you have to like grow in, and you're like, I'm not sure if this is gonna work or not, but like this is where I'm heading now. This is where I'm heading. Um, yeah, even as I say it, like I get excited. So hopefully it puts a smile on your face too. It's like, would either of you want to share something that you're working on that just like that brings that up for you? Shalomita, I saw you with that.
Oh, well, it's funny that you say this and this conversation came up right now. So I'm actually a retired acupuncturist. I retired in the late fall of 2021. And I was in the online space since 2017. So I'm used to doing online classes and coaching and all of that stuff. But being at the retreat that I was just at, we did these coherent healings. And I had this profound experience with my Healy. And being in that healing space made me remember how much I loved being an acupuncturist. But the reason why I stopped being an acupuncturist, and as we've touched upon in this conversation, is I wanted to stop the one-to-one. I didn't want to work with one person at a time. When I speak and I give somebody information, I want to give that information to multiple people. I want to help. And so I am now sitting on the edge of creating something that incorporates acupuncture without needles in an online space that brings me back into the healer that I am. And, even saying those words out loud, that I am a healer, for many, many years, I was told you can't call yourself that. Healers don't call themselves healers. Healers aren't supposed to do that. It's God's work. It's this work and stuff. And I'm very aware of the fact that I serve as a channel, and I am a channel for God, source, universe, the divine. I know that it's not me doing the work, but my job and my goal here is to help people heal. And that in turn means that I am a healer. And so owning that, accepting that, knowing that there's nothing wrong with me calling myself that. And I just had this breakthrough yesterday with my husband, and I said, I'm on the verge of creating something. I am innovating something. Something is coming where I can marry all of these skill sets that I've had all of these times and be able to do it on a mass level. And, taking myself into spaces. I'm a student of life. I love to learn. I love to be in creative spaces where people are teaching me new things. And I watched Dr. Joe Dispenza anoint 1,900 people in a room and tell them that they were all healers. And while I'm sure not everybody believed that, the majority of that room felt the power that they were about to heal somebody. And it was just so profound. And I'm like, well, if he could do that, then what can I do? Right. And I love taking other people's experiences. The shift for me, my story, one of my books is called From Food Stamps to First Class. So, what got me from food stamps to where I am was the shift in thinking. I used to look at other people and I used to watch what they would do, and I would watch them from a lens of jealousy and envy. Like, why them, not me? Why does she get to do that and I don't? Why do they get to travel there? I don't. Why does she have a husband? I don't. Right. And I would look at people from this lens. And when I started on this journey, I shifted my thinking and I started watching other people, and I allowed for them to be the evidence that to show me that if you're a human being and you're doing XYZ, then my human should be able to do XYZ. And instead of looking in them from a lens of envy and jealousy, I started looking at them from a lens of gratitude. And I started being thankful. Thank you for showing up in my life and showing me that this is possible. Thank you for, leading the way. Thank you for this experience. And so that shift has really created this edge for me that I'm excited to take on, right? Where before I might have been scared and I might have talked myself out of it and created all those limited beliefs of, no, no, this is not for you. But now it's like, look at all the evidence here for me.
Right.
I want to let that just sit in a little bit there, you know. Uh, that's a really cool element of like looking at the evidence. I haven't thought of it in that way. But I realized like this part of what's happening here. I'm like, let's just keep showing evidence of like how different, how it can be done. And to your point, I wrote it down. You said, if he can do that, what can I do? Right.
Yeah.
And so like Outlier Trailblazers, just keep this in here. This is it. These are the seeds that were planted so we can continue to grow with each other. And then go and make it actually happen. Take the steps that are necessary to actually bring that out to life. Shilamida, I appreciate that. That's my innards right now are warming up as I hear you share that.
I love
Evan,
it.
how about you? What are you feeling called to share about this?
So I think if we're talking about sweaty palms, for me right now, we're kind of stepping more fully into Facebook ads, which is definitely not sexy. But it's kind of necessary at this point in my business to have consistent lead flow. Most of the people that I get right now are all from interviews, podcasts, summits, stuff like that, referrals. And so at this point, and Facebook, it's just like learning a whole, it's like going back to medical school, right? They told us when we entered that we were going to learn 30,000 new words, right? It's a whole new vocabulary. And I joined a mastermind that is teaching us how to manage our own Facebook ads. So this is kind of like beyond me, but the person who runs this mastermind, he says you have to be able to understand this. And so I'm trying to get into it. I have an operations manager and she's quite good at this, and so I'm kind of relying on her a little bit, but I know that I need to step more into it. And I need to be, there's things about our businesses that attract us more, where we're like, I know I should do this work over here, but this work is just a lot more gratifying. It's either a shorter list, I can kind of check things off, I can feel good, I can get that dopamine hit. But redoing my webinar, I don't know. That sounds like that's a long project. It's really, all of a sudden those limiting beliefs start crowding in, and it's just not a place that you necessarily want to go because you haven't sat down and you haven't created a plan. So for me, it's about, and right now we've spent already $8,000 on Facebook ads, and we don't have any sales from that yet. So it's kind of like I don't feel like we're doing this right. There's just so much doubt that's kind of creeping in. But it's like, okay, well, what do we do next? Like, I've learned to ask myself empowering questions. Like, what is the next thing that we need to learn? And we do have a resource in this mastermind. So I'm like, okay, let's schedule with this resource. Let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's get some accountability. When I'm talking to my operations manager, I was like, let's figure out what the next step is. That's all we have to figure out right now. What is going to be the next step? And let's kind of come back together in a couple of weeks and figure out what that needs to be, so that we can be successful at this.
I'm over here. I'm smiling because Devin, it's as if you're in my head right now with someone what you're just saying. Like, well, I'm not taking on Facebook ads right now, but I have been looking into like, all right, consistent lead flow, so on and so forth. And the question that comes in is like, all right, it's working. It's working somewhat, but how do I get it? Like where do I go and put my attention and focus into going forward? And I'll be honest with you. So many days I wake up, I'm like, bail, 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 bail. Go do something else. Pivot, pivot, pivot. And another part of me is like, but you know that like you're gonna run into this issue again with a new problem. It's like let's let's take it on and actually get over the hump, climb that mountain and get on the other side rather than like stepping back here. And I'm really curious how you all have navigated this year. Like no one's journey is just a straight path. So very curious about what's either coming through to you in your mind, or and I can frame it in the questionnaire in the sense of like that persevere pivot moments for you. What are like some of the recent ones that you're dealing with? But very curious about how you are navigating this.
I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 21 years old. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to like get up and scratch everything and go get a job. And, it's the entrepreneur journey is not for the faint of heart, but like Evan mentioned, I put myself into spaces and masterminds where I'm with other high level people that we talk about things and they ignite ideas and stuff. And by being in these conversations, and sometimes I don't even ask a question, sometimes I'm just present for other people asking questions. And you get so many answers to questions you don't even know that you have. So I spend a lot of my time in personal development for myself as well as for my business. And that really has helped me along the journey, because if you try to do this alone, whether it's the entrepreneur journey or just being a human journey, right? It's like, it's so hard. And in everyday life, people are not having these kinds of conversations, right? When you're with the PTA moms or you're sitting at a baseball game, it's very surface level. Like, nobody has depth, and everybody is just trying to survive or good enough, right? And for me, that's not the way that I live. I live an extraordinary life. And so I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about mundane things. I want to be able to have a conversation about business and what's working, what's not working. How can we innovate? How can we make this more exciting? What could we come to the edge with and make life exciting? When things start to get too comfortable, I know that it's time to start shaking things up, because once we're comfortable, we're in compliance. And once we're in compliance, we've lost the awareness, we've lost the consciousness, and we're just operating in autopilot.
With a smile
Yeah.
on my face. Have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, talking about personal development and the professional development is essential, like, and you can't have the professional development without the personal development, right? It always starts at home. The other thing that occurred to me is I'd heard this quote once upon a time, which is, the only people who don't succeed are those that bail, right? And that you just have to hold on. You have to hold on, and you have to keep pivoting, and you have to get up every day. And the entrepreneur's journey, like you said, is not for the faint of heart. It is challenging. And so you have to, that's why I have those mindset practices, so that when I have those limiting beliefs pop up, that I replace them with affirmations, that I replace them with empowering beliefs, right? That I'm asking myself empowering questions, that I'm living from gratitude, that I'm having a vision for what I want my life to look like. So I find that I can come back to those things. And when I really get stuck, that's when I go for the psychedelic medicine. So um, that you have to stay in the game, you have to keep moving forward, and you have to keep learning, and you have to be, I mean, obviously, as people can see in listening to all of us today, you have to be vulnerable, and you have to realize um, that you have to deal with the shadow stuff. You have to deal with the uncomfortable stuff in order to get to the next level.
Yeah.
What's the thing for you that most people either avoid or don't know is like really part of the key to success, like in this game? I mean, like maybe the key of your success, or like the key to actually making an impact and living into their purpose.
You want
I
me to
mean,
go
I don't,
first, Deb?
yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a broken record, but for me, it's the mindset and the nervous system retraining. It's kind of like it's not what's outside, it's what's inside. you know, um, and I can expand on that, but I feel like I've talked a bunch about it. But yeah, I think that that's that's how the game is won, no matter what game you're playing. It has to start and end from there.
Yeah. I agree with Evan. And what I would add is self-acceptance, just allowing for yourself to accept the fact that you are who you are. And consistency is key, right? So if you keep doing it, then you'll eventually get to the end goal, right? Like Evan said before, it's like, it's better doing it 80%. It's better finishing than not doing it at all. My husband's mantra is persistence, positivity, and perseverance. And if you keep being persistent and you're positive, you're going to persevere. You're going to get to the end result. Most people, they give up. Most people give up after one try. Most people, all of their limited beliefs come in and they don't give it 110%. And that's why they fail. And so this entrepreneur journey, it's a hard one. And people don't like hard. People like to give up because they're like, I'm just not good at this. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. But if you just keep sticking to it, eventually something will click. It always does.
Mhm. I tell my daughter patience and persistence. So I like what your husband says too.
Yeah, the three P's.
Yeah, y'all have wise people in their corners. I love this. I got an element of self-acceptance. I got a level of simplicity too, Evan. I actually like that you're like, it ain't something new, y'all. Like it all kind of boils down to the same thing. Let's not make it into anything more than it needs to be. Like consistently do the same thing. And that's a lesson right now that I'm learning as a like generally speaking, the way that I had identified myself was as a creative, a creator, entrepreneurial spirit. I can go off and like I got rewarded for leaving my business, my like full-time job to become an entrepreneur and try all these new things. And now I'm like, okay, can I just keep it simple? Can I actually just like it's almost like there's a new reward in being able to do the same thing, but better for more people. This is why I think like the one-on-one part is really interesting. I'm like, oh, making that shift. Like, Shilamida, you're like, how do I do acupuncture without needles? You know, in a one-to-many environment. I'm like, that is like it's you're doing the same thing, but you're like, how do I take this up to another level with these constraints, right? Like, I think that it's that level of simplicity and like consistency and just getting better and better and saying, how do I deliver it to more people? You know, I'm seeing you, Evan. You're like, all right, from one-on-one to group, from like meeting people in this capacity to now doing it through Facebook ads. Like, there's something really real there. And as the conversation goes, I'm going to try and tap into what's like going on in my heart. But I feel very much like I'm like, oh yeah, these are my peers. They get it. Like, it's not just about moving forward. It is also about adding in that next level of growth in there. So I thank you for that.
With the simplicity piece, the thing is that we are conditioned to make everything hard. We're conditioned that we're supposed to hustle. We're conditioned to, right, go, 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 go. But the truth is that when we peel away all of the layers, it actually gets to be so simple. You get to be wildly wealthy without doing a lot of work or a lot of effort. But even getting into that mindset will set people off, right? Like having that conversation with somebody and be like, you don't have to hustle and make $100,000 a year. And people are like, wait, what do you mean I don't have to hustle? But I've been trained to hustle. No, when we peel away the layers and when we really awaken to our freedom and to our purpose here was not to work 9 to 5, to hustle, to work 3 jobs, to get all the things done. It really wasn't. It's really to connect back to source. And the more time that we spend connecting back to source, the simpler life gets. And most people, they can't handle that because they're constantly looking over their shoulder and they're like, but I'm supposed to be not feeling this way. This is just too easy. But, again, going from my story from food stamps to first class, I know what it's like to hustle. And then I know this existence where every day there's time for self-care. Every day there's time for self-love. Every day there's time for me. Where there was a time where I didn't have time to meditate. I didn't have time to go to the gym. I didn't have time to take care of myself. What do you mean? I have to hustle. I have to work. I have to do all these things. We have it all wrong. We're conditioned so wrong in this life.
Yeah, really powerful. I think that it's, part of this is questioning everything. For me, and it's asking empowering questions. So oftentimes, part of keeping it simple and structuring my business in a way that's really going to serve me and serve others is asking myself, where do they really need me? Like, what can I automate? And then where do they really need me? And asking myself, how can I make this more simple? Right? How can I serve more people? And then waiting for answers. Oftentimes there was something that came to me in meditation on Saturday, which was a question that I had been sitting for a period of time. So, I think that asking ourselves these empowering questions and questioning everything, you were talking about like the hustle. It's like, okay, what sort of house do you need to be happy? What sort of job do you need to be happy? How much do you need to make to be happy? Like, what are the actual answers to those questions, right? Or are you looking for happiness or not? Are you looking for something else, right? So just being really frank with yourself about what it is that you're looking for and then asking you questions about every aspect of your life to see like what you want to create. You know, I make less money now than I did when I had my brick and mortar, but I'm able to live a life that I want for nothing. And it's, you know, with the structure, my wife works as well. Everything is kind of is created now in a way where I'm working from home. I'm here for when my daughter comes home from school. I budget 2 hours of time every single day in order to support her in her academic and other goals. So I think it's just really important. And it all came from asking the question like, do I need to make this amount of money? Can I still be happy making less? And what does the structure of my life need to be in order for me to make less and still have everything that I want? Right? So I think and part of that also came from the necessity of having chronic fatigue syndrome, where I was kind of forced into making those changes. But so much of it just came from asking really good questions. How can I make my life, how can I make this, whatever it is, more simple?
To add to what Evan said, I feel that we have this marker of success, millionaire, right? Like we think that the $1 million mark is success. That's the way that we've been trained. But what does that actually mean? Is that $1 million in a year? Is that $1 million over 20 years? Is that $1 million in assets? When you really break down this word millionaire that we've all been conditioned to, that's what I desire to be. I desire to be a millionaire. But when you really break it down, you really sit down with somebody and you're like, is that really what you need? Do you need $1 million or do you need freedom? Do you need time? Do you need happiness? Do you need joy? Like, what is it that you need to bring into your life? And is the millionaire status going to bring you that? I've really been tangled in that and have had to untangle that for a very long time. Because like Evan, I've also have not made as much money as when I had my brick and mortar, but I am the happiest I have ever been in my lifetime because I have created time freedom. I have created a schedule that revolves around the way that I want to live my life. Where before I was chasing the $1 million year, and it was like, I didn't even need that. I don't even need that kind of wealth in order to experience the kind of joy that I experience now. So it's this conditioning that we have been led to believe that that's happiness. That $1 million marker is happiness. But then when you really break down that $1 million, for most people, that's not even truth. You can live a wealthy life without having all of those zeros at the end. And that's really what we need to sit with. What is it that is going to make you joy? Why are you looking for that $1 million? Is it for yourself? Or is it to show your parents? Or is it to prove to your husband? Or is it to prove to your colleagues? Right? For me, like, I don't even know what it was. I had a year that I made $500,000. I didn't even enjoy it. I didn't even appreciate it because I was chasing the million. And now looking back in hindsight, I was like, oh, like how rich were you? Right. And the joy that I have now trumps any dollar amount that I could ever can have.
Amen.
Think it's a good place for us to wrap for today. Like, I'm grateful for each of you. Outliers, for any of you that are listening to this and you feel that there's someone in your world who would really benefit from this conversation, my ask is like to go and share this conversation with them directly. We call it the one person, one conversation at a time initiative, but I really have this viewpoint that like this is how this thing really grows. This is how we really, it grows by not just listening to a conversation, but by actually serving and helping people. And we can do that by thinking of one person in your world who would grow as a result of this conversation and sending it over to them with love, with intention, and as a gift to them in their journeys and endeavors. So that's my ask of you. Evan, Shilamida, we're going to wrap up our conversation. I'd like to end it with two questions. The first question is just how outliers can go deeper down the journey with you. So if you can share your best contact information, we're all in a bunch of different places, so try and keep it limited to like the best, highest leverage, but like let us know that. And then the second question here is, this is really important. We're going to put outliers to the side. They're going to pull whatever wisdom that they want to pull from this conversation already. Now, instead of having outsights for them, I'd like to get an insight from you. what's something that's changing for you as a result of this conversation? In which ways have you grown from this conversation? What's a takeaway you have? And if you don't have any takeaways, that's totally fine. You can say like, hey, I don't have any, but I do like to leave that here because if the experience is going well, we're all growing throughout. Like that's the game that we're playing. All right. So what's the way to go deeper with you? And what's an insight, if any, that you got from today? Shilamida, why don't we start with you and then we'll wrap up with you, Evan.
So you can find me on the internet if you spell my name correctly. My website is www.shilamida.com. It's Shilamida. There are no E's in my name. I live on Facebook. I love Instagram. I'm over on TikTok. So if you spell my name right, you'll find me all over the internet. And my one takeaway in this conversation is that there are people who are totally aligned with you in your way of thinking, in your way of expansion. I feel like spending this hour with you gentlemen has been so expansive for me. I love that Evan is doing the work that he's doing. Niiamah, you're doing such amazing work. And I'm just so grateful to be able to be in the energetic frequency where I've been invited to be on this show with you, and that people are on my wavelength. Because for a very long time, I thought that I was weird. I thought that I was different. I thought all of these things that were wrong with me. And the more I become comfortable with myself, the more I am attracting amazing human beings. So if you are an outlier, I mean, the name says it all, right? We're outliers, but you are more the same with others than you actually think. And it's just those beliefs that we have been ingrained to think that we are different. And the truth is that we are all one love. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank
So
you.
you can find me, Evan Hirsch, at energymd.com. So that's energymd, like medical doctor, method.com. Click on the link to watch the masterclass if you're interested in seeing if we're a good fit to work together, if you've got chronic fatigue or if you have long COVID, and then get on a free call with me where I'll kind of go through a process to see if I can help you. And if I can, then we can kind of talk about what it looks like. So I think for me, it's always a great reflection for me to be able to voice what I'm doing in my life and where I'm at. And there's always kind of the gap between where I am and what I can do better. I'm obviously not perfect. And it's like, oh, did I do my mindset and nervous system retraining practice this morning? Yes. Did I do it yesterday? I don't remember. So it's kind of like just a reminder to kind of remember to do it. Um, and definitely, connecting with you guys. This is, I work from home. This is not something that I get to do on a daily basis. So to be able to talk about this stuff with people who are in the same vein, I definitely appreciate. And it is so important. And it's not something that you get at the local water cooler or at the local PTA or, all that, I don't get it. I'm a singer. And so I'm doing a musical right now, and I'm not really talking about this stuff with people that I'm doing the musical with, but we have other things that we laugh about, but it's nice to connect in this deeper way that other people aren't talking about.
I appreciate you. I feel you all right now. Thank you so much for bringing your experience to the table and sharing it so graciously. Outliers. Until the next time we talk, be you on purpose. Journey on.